Hi, I'm Ron Jones from Lean Braze. I'm here in Tucson, Arizona with Enid Whitaker, Managing Director of Bonnie Prudden Myotherapy and Physical Education Teacher. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Kraus-Weber Test, which is a very famous back test from 1940. And there's a whole history of this that includes the President's Fitness Council and explosion of sports in America and all kinds of stuff. So Enid's going to give you a little glimpse into the history of this test and why it's important to know and also to still be doing today along with the corrective exercises.
This is the short version.
This is the short version because we got about 60 years of history with this, right?
It started back in the 40s with Hans Krause and Sonja Weber at the Posture Clinic at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York.
They had a posture clinic at the hospital.
Right.
Just think of that one for a while.
And parents started bringing their kids in with protruding abdomens and rounded shoulders and pigeon toes and all kinds of things.
Deformities.
And back pain. And they were tested with all different kinds of tests, exhaustive testing. And what they found was that 85% of the time there was no reason why these people should have poor posture or back pain. There was no pathology found in 85% of the cases.
So these are medical tests going on.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. And so they, being trained in Austria, both of them, they knew much more about muscles than the average American doctor. So they thought, well, if it's not, there's no pathology, maybe it's muscle. So moving forward, they also formed the back clinic, and the same kind of thing happened. But what they did was once they found that there was no pathology, they designed a series of exercises. If the people performed the exercises, their posture improved and they didn't have any pain. So the same thing happened when they formed the backache clinic. And the backache clinic started after World War II when everybody started coming in with back pain. And again, 85% of them, there was no pathology. So they formed the test, they formed the correctives, and in 90 seconds, these are just key posture muscles, the abdominals, the psoas, the upper back, lower back, and hamstring and back flexibility. In 90 seconds, if you do it right, you can tell a lot of things about a patient. And where you should begin. So because it's a minimum test, everybody should be able to do it, no matter if they're 6 months or 106 years old. Because we all have the same muscles, they all work the same way. And so that's how this started. And Bonnie started using it in 1947 when she started classes for her two girls, because she went to their class and it was horrible, she said. She could do better.
The PE classes.
The PE classes, yeah. All they do is play games. So she said, I can do better. So she told her girls, you invite 5 friends, you invite 5 friends, and we'll meet at the Girl Scout house. And that night, 2 mothers called and said they didn't want their girls to exercise so they'd get muscles. Bonnie always had an answer, so she said, told the mothers, under every curve is a muscle. No muscle, no curve, no husband. And so instead of calling it exercise, she called it conditioning because she said nobody knew what that was. So she held conditioning classes. She started with 10 kids. In 6 weeks she had 75. And she just kept adding and growing out of the spaces that she had. And finally she went into the schools and they let her use it. And then one year she had 100 new students coming in. So she asked Dr. Krause, and the reason she knew Dr. Krause was because they were both climbers. She had met him in 1938 in the Schwangunks when they were climbing. He became her mentor as far as climbing.
And they were both elite climbers. The best in the world.
She became an elite climber because of him.
And
then she started working as his research assistant at the back clinic. Columbia Presbyterian Back Clinic. And so he said, yeah, I have a test, but your kids will all pass it because they're all healthy. This is for sick kids. So she said, I'll use it anyway. So she tested all the kids that were there, and when she divided up the cards, she found out that the kids who had been with her taking classes failed at 8%, and the kids that were new coming in failed at 58%. In that test.
Really?
Yeah, a test that we just saw Naomi and I do.
So she was doing something right to get the kids to have the right postural
Right.
strength and flexibility.
Right.
Okay.
And so what she said to herself is, if my results are correct, if my testing is correct, America is in trouble.
And this was what year?
Somewhere around 1950.
Sometimes we don't listen. That's an understatement, right?
So Dr. Krause said, well, you must be doing it wrong. She said, well, come over and see for yourself. So he did, and she wasn't doing it wrong. So at that point, he said, well, can you test a town? Can you test a village? Can you test a school? So she had lots of friends because of her Institute for Physical Fitness. So she tested as many kids as she could get her hands on and taught her neighbors how to test them too. Until they had tested almost 5,000 kids.
Wow.
And because they went climbing and skiing in Europe during the summer, they tested kids over there of the same age, from 6 to 16. And the results over there were 8% failure, as opposed to our 58% failure.
The same thing.
Right.
Wow.
Exact same thing.
Interesting.
So they started writing medical papers, and nobody paid any attention. And they kept writing, and nobody paid any attention, until finally Grace Kelly's father, John Kelly, who was a oarsman,
right,
sculling,
rower.
rower. He saw an article in the Winged Foot.
The Wing and Foot.
Winged.
Oh,
Winged Foot.
Okay.
Yeah. And he knew Duffy and he knew Eisenhower. And so he took the article to them and said, better look at this. And that's when Bonnie and Krause were invited to the White House to give their report.
Directly to President Eisenhower.
Right.
1954?
1955.
55.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, or was it 56? 56.
Mid-50s. Okay.
And it became the report known as the report that shocked the president.
Right, right. And Eisenhower knew the importance of fitness because of World War II, and he said that we lost 20% more troops in World War II than World War I based on lack of fitness alone, right?
And he himself was very athletic, and he grew up being active. And so he knew what it was to move and to build your body without equipment.
And so there are roots of national security in KrausWeber. There was a concern because of our lack of ability just to hold our postural line and move properly.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's the brief history of the KrausWeber.
And then from that, President Eisenhower was so shocked he formed the President's Council, right?
First he formed a citizens committee, and Bonnie served on that for 3 years. It was held at West Point and the other two
military academies.
Annapolis,
yeah.
And she resigned after 3 years because she said all they did was talk and no action.
Some things never change, right?
So since then, it was first known as the President's Council on Youth Fitness, and then it was Physical Fitness and Sport, and now it's Physical Fitness, Sport, and Nutrition. But nothing has really changed. They still don't do much of anything. They have a nice looking website.
Right, right, and there's not much left of it today.
Right.
But out of the KrausWeber, the shock of that our kids were so unfit compared to Europe on basic postural fitness, there was an explosion of sports as well. And we tried to fix this with sports, but all sports create more imbalances.
Right, and Bonnie always used to say you have to get fit to participate in the sport, not use a sport to get fit.
Right, and that is gold. Just that statement alone is worth thinking about. And so today, I've done a corporate pilot with the KrausWeber test. You predicted I'd probably have an 80% failure rate. Guess what the failure rate was? About 80%, right? So minimum postural fitness. Which
predicts the rate of back pain.
Right.
Because if you can't do a bent knee sit-up and you can't touch the floor, you're going to have back pain.
And they say, according to studies and research, that about 80% of Americans have back pain or will have back pain. So isn't it interesting how that correlates? And even top athletes today, one of my favorite parts of the KrausWeber test is the flexibility reach, where you should be able to touch your fingertips to the ground for 3 seconds, no warm-up, feet together, just bend over and reach. And very seldom can people do that.
And the reason you do it without warm-up is, if you're going to have an accident, you don't have time to warm up.
Right.
So the muscles have to be flexible to begin with so that they give instead of rip.
Right. And this is basic, bottom line, foundational, like step one fitness for key postural muscles.
You can't be the best athlete you could be if you can do 1,000,000 sit-ups but you can't touch the floor.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
We have gotten the proverbial cart in front of the horse, my friends. So that's the history of the KrausWeber, and while it's still important today, and I've been using those corrective exercises for years and they work great. And the corrective part of the KrausWeber is part of the YMCA program. For about 10 years, 300,000 people globally, they put through that protocol. Amazing history. Thank you.